done since I was a child.
Since you were a child, and I wasn't a
flying
child.
nun.
I know.
Sally Field, born in Pasadena, California in 1946, is one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses. She began her career with light-hearted TV roles in Gidget and The Flying Nun, but later earned acclaim for powerful performances in Norma Rae and Places in the Heart, winning 2 Academy Awards. Known for her versatility, Field also starred in hits like Forrest Gump and Steel Magnolias. Beyond acting, she has been an advocate for women's rights and social justice. Her journey reflects resilience, talent, and the enduring charm that made her a cherished figure in American cinema. At 78, with nothing left to prove, she decides to openly name the 7 actors she most disliked due to toxic behavior or damaging dynamics. Exposes Hollywood's secrets, continuing from her rise as one of the most respected actresses of her generation. Sally Field's personal life became deeply entangled with another Hollywood icon, Burt Reynolds. Their romance, which began in the late 1970s during the filming of Smokey and the Bandit, captivated the public and seemed like a perfect match between 2 stars at the height of fame. They went on to work together in several films, including Hooper and The End. Yet behind the glamour, their relationship was far from the fairy tale the media portrayed. Field later revealed that Reynolds was controlling, dismissive, and often belittled her achievements. He restricted her freedom of expression, making her feel diminished rather than supported. Instead of celebrating her growing career, he mocked her appearance and downplayed her talent, casting a shadow over her confidence. When Sally won the Academy Award for Norma Rae in 1980, Reynolds was conspicuously absent, leaving her to face the most triumphant moment of her career alone. Years later, Reynolds publicly referred to Sally as the love of my life, painting a nostalgic picture of their romance. But Field, in her candid memoir, clarified that Reynolds never truly loved her as a person. He loved an idea of her, a version he could control and shape to his liking. She firmly stated that what he offered was not genuine affection, but possession disguised as passion. The disillusionment was profound, and ultimately, the relationship collapsed under the weight of its toxicity. After their breakup, Field cut all ties and did not speak to Reynolds for the last 3 decades of his life. To her, that distance was a necessary act of self-preservation and a reclaiming of her worth. While the world may remember them as an iconic couple on screen, Field carried the painful truth of what it cost her off-screen: years of belittlement, emotional struggle, and a reminder that even Hollywood's golden romances can conceal damaging realities. Sally Field's cold on-screen partner, after the painful disillusionment she endured in her relationship with Burt Reynolds. Sally Field faced another challenging dynamic in her professional life, this time with fellow actor Tommy Lee Jones. Their collaboration came in 1981 with the drama Back Roads, a film that was expected to capitalize on both stars' talents and box office appeal. Yet instead of becoming a memorable success, the project became one of Field's most frustrating experiences, largely due to Jones's cold and unapproachable demeanor. On set, Jones was distant, aloof, and nearly impossible to engage with, while Field was known for her warmth, dedication, and ability to build chemistry with her co-stars. Jones seemed unwilling to open up or even meet her halfway. His detached attitude translated directly into their performances. The 2 leads, who were supposed to portray a complex and passionate relationship, failed to spark any real on-screen connection. The lack of chemistry was so evident that critics and audiences alike cited it as one of the main reasons Back Roads flopped both commercially and critically. For Field, the experience was more than a professional disappointment. It was personal. She felt undervalued, as if her commitment to the craft and her efforts to create something meaningful were met with indifference. Unlike her struggles with Reynolds, which were tangled with personal intimacy, the clash with Jones was rooted in professional incompatibility. Still, the sting of working with someone who refused to collaborate left Field with lasting resentment. Years later, however, time softened the edges of that memory. Jones eventually sought Field out and offered an apology, acknowledging his past behavior and the negative impact it had on their collaboration. Field accepted the apology with grace, though she remained clear that the hurtful distance of their earlier work together had left a scar. In Lincoln, Jones and Field showcased growth, earning acclaim for their performances. Despite the professionalism and mutual respect they displayed in Lincoln, their relationship never blossomed into friendship. For Sally Field, the early wounds of Backroads remained a reminder that some professional divides can never be entirely bridged. What endured was not animosity, but a cautious distance, proof that even among Hollywood's finest, not every pairing is destined for harmony. Behind Sally Field's Blake clash, after her difficult encounters with controlling partners like Burt Reynolds and distant co-stars such as Tommy Lee Jones, Sally Field found herself facing yet another professional ordeal, this time with actor Robert Blake. Their collaboration took place during the ill-fated television movie Say Goodbye, Maggie Cole in the early 1970s. What was meant to be an exciting project quickly spiraled into one of the most stressful experiences of Field's career, largely due to Blake's extreme and unpredictable behavior. Blake was a devoted practitioner of method acting, but instead of channeling it into a disciplined performance, he pushed it to chaotic extremes. He frequently rewrote his lines on the spot, disregarding the script and disrupting the natural rhythm of dialogue. For Field, who valued preparation, timing, and emotional authenticity, his constant improvisation shattered the flow of her work. Scenes that should have carried dramatic weight instead became disjointed exercises in frustration. Worse still, Blake's temperament created a toxic atmosphere on set. He was known to lose his temper without warning, often berating crew members and even shouting at fellow actors. The production team struggled to maintain order, but his volatility overshadowed the creative process. For Field, who was still building her career and eager to prove herself, the situation was emotionally exhausting. Instead of fostering collaboration, Blake's behavior turned the set into a hostile environment where survival felt more urgent than artistry. The culmination of these tensions was disastrous. Say Goodbye. Maggie Cole never reached audiences. The project was ultimately shelved, its promise undone by the turmoil behind the scenes. What should have been a stepping stone in Field's career became instead a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ego and destructive methods. Looking back, Field described her time working with Blake not as an artistic journey, but as a test of endurance. She felt stripped of the joy of acting, forced instead to endure a hostile partnership that robbed her of creative freedom. While she would go on to achieve monumental success and respect in Hollywood, the scars of Say Goodbye. Maggie Cole remained a reminder that not every collaboration enriches an artist's path. For Sally Field, working with Robert Blake was less about performance and more about survival, a lesson in resilience in the face of chaos. Stars in conflict. Following her chaotic experience with Robert Blake, Sally Field entered the late 1980s as an actress at the height of her craft. In 1989, she joined a powerhouse ensemble cast for Steel Magnolias, a film that blended humor and heartbreak and gave audiences one of the most emotional performances of her career. on screen. Her chemistry with Shirley MacLaine and the rest of the cast appeared seamless, contributing to the film's lasting legacy as a beloved classic. Yet, off-screen, the reality was far less harmonious. Behind the scenes, Field and MacLaine struggled with an unspoken rivalry, while their characters shared moments of warmth and biting exchanges that fueled the story's emotional core. The actresses themselves were quietly at odds. MacLaine, already a veteran and forceful presence in Hollywood, often came across as controlling during filming. She had a tendency to assert herself, cutting into Field's scenes or undermining her emotional rhythm with abrupt interruptions. This became particularly painful for Field in the film's most climactic scenes. During the heartbreaking sequence in which Field's character, Malin, breaks down at her daughter's funeral, Field gave everything: raw emotion, vulnerability, and a performance that remains one of her finest. Yet MacLaine repeatedly disrupted the flow, shifting energy and breaking the delicate emotional tension that Field had worked so hard to build. While the audience saw only the final edited version, Field privately carried the frustration of having her most intense moments fractured by a co-star's intrusive energy. Despite these struggles, there were no explosive confrontations. Field, ever the professional, maintained composure, while MacLaine continued to assert her dominance without direct conflict. The tension, however, lingered unspoken. To outsiders, the cast appeared bonded by the shared weight of the story they brought to life. To Field, the reality was a different story. She had endured yet another collaboration where her artistry was overshadowed by a colleague's need for control. In the years after Steel Magnolias, Field and MacLaine kept their distance. They never engaged in public feuds, nor did they disparage one another in interviews. Still, those who knew the production sensed the quiet friction that left its mark. For Field, the experience reinforced a painful truth she had faced before. Not every powerful performance is born of harmony behind the camera. Sometimes, the strongest on-screen bonds mask deep divisions in real life. Kiss Me Goodbye turned sour. Coming off the emotional strains of her work with Shirley MacLaine, Sally Field stepped into the early 1980s with another big-screen project, Kiss Me Goodbye, 1982. The film, which was meant to be a charming romantic comedy with elements of fantasy, paired her with actor James Woods. While the script promised lightness, the behind-the-scenes reality was anything but. For Field, working with Woods would become one of her most disheartening professional experiences, leaving her with scars that went far beyond the movie itself. James Woods entered the project with a reputation for being highly intelligent and fiercely competitive. Instead of channeling that intensity into his character, however, he brought it onto the set, often in ways that undermined those around him. Field, an actress who thrived on collaboration, quickly found herself the target of his hypercritical nature. Woods frequently challenged not only her choices, but also those of the director, creating an atmosphere of tension and disruption during filming. The most damaging moments for Field came when Woods publicly dismissed her performance. In one particularly humiliating incident, as Field attempted to deliver a delicate emotional scene, Woods interrupted to declare, "She's not being real." The words cut deeply, not only breaking her concentration, but also making her feel diminished in front of the entire crew. For an actress who had fought so hard to earn respect in Hollywood, a woman who had already proven her worth with an Academy Award for Norma Rae, the experience was both insulting and infuriating. Field felt deeply wounded by Woods's arrogance and misuse of intelligence to dominate. Though Kiss Me Goodbye premiered, its bitter production tainted her experience, highlighting the challenge of navigating egos in the pursuit of artistry. Behind fame. After enduring difficult collaborations with actors like James Woods, Sally Field faced another troubling experience early in her career, this time with Dustin Hoffman. Their encounter took place not on a film set, but during a casting session, where Field had come prepared to audition with her own interpretation of the script. Instead of respecting her process, Hoffman repeatedly interrupted her, correcting the way she read her lines as if she were a novice. For Field, the experience was not one of mentorship, but of humiliation. Hoffman's constant interjections, delivered in front of casting staff, made her feel belittled and undermined. Each time she tried to deliver the dialogue, he would cut her off, insisting on how he thought the scene should be played. It wasn't collaboration, it was domination. The incident struck a nerve with Field, who had already been fighting to establish herself in an industry often dismissive of women's voices. To her, Hoffman's behavior was not only arrogant, but also emblematic of a larger problem in Hollywood, where powerful male actors often overshadowed and diminished their female counterparts. What could have been a moment of artistic exchange instead became a painful reminder of the condescension she would have to resist throughout her career. Deeply hurt by the ordeal, Field left the audition with a firm resolution. She would never work with Dustin Hoffman under any circumstances. In later reflections, she described the encounter as a turning point, teaching her to recognize the difference between genuine collaboration and outright disrespect. While Hoffman went on to cement his place as one of Hollywood's most celebrated actors, Field carried with her the sting of that early dismissal, a wound that hardened into lasting disdain. When styles collide on-screen, following her humiliating encounter with Dustin Hoffman, Sally Field had another unsettling experience, this time with Jeff Bridges. The two crossed paths during a screen test for a project that ultimately never materialized. What should have been a collaborative audition turned into a frustrating clash of acting styles, leaving Field with a bitter impression of Bridges and no desire to work with him again. Bridges approached the test with his characteristic looseness, improvising lines and frequently veering off script. While improvisation can bring freshness to a performance, in this case, it disrupted the natural rhythm that Field had carefully prepared. Several times, as she tried to build emotional intensity, Bridges abruptly cut in with spontaneous gestures or offbeat dialogue, shattering the tone of the scene. To Field, this wasn't creativity, it was carelessness. She saw it as a lack of respect for both the material and her efforts as a scene partner. The tension didn't end there. In later interviews, Bridges hinted at the incident, describing Field as too rigid and implying she was difficult to collaborate with. For Field, these remarks only reinforced her belief that his attitude during the test was dismissive. Instead of recognizing the importance of discipline and respect in acting, he framed her professionalism as inflexibility. It was, in her eyes, a subtle form of belittlement that she had endured too often from male colleagues in Hollywood. Although the project itself was abandoned, the experience left its mark. Field walked away convinced that Bridges had no genuine interest in partnership, only in showcasing his own style. From that point forward, she quietly resolved never to work with him again. Unlike her public clashes with other actors, the rift with Bridges remained understated, yet decisive. For Sally Field, the audition became another reminder that not all encounters in Hollywood lead to growth. Some simply reaffirmed the boundaries of respect she refused to let others cross. The enduring legacy of Sally, after years of professional challenges and personal trials, Sally Field emerged as one of Hollywood's most enduring figures. Her legacy is defined not only by 2 Academy Awards and unforgettable performances in Norma Rae, Places in the Heart, Steel Magnolias, and Forrest Gump, but also by her resilience in facing adversity. Field's ability to balance vulnerability with strength allowed her to portray characters that resonated deeply with audiences, particularly women seeking authentic representation on screen. Beyond acting, she has been a vocal advocate for women's rights, LGBTQ+ equality, and social justice, proving her influence reaches far beyond cinema. For generations, Sally Field remains an emblem of talent, courage, and truth. Sally Field's truth. All of these conflicts reflect the true nature of Hollywood, an industry driven by power, ego, and, inevitably, wounds. For decades, Sally Field chose silence, carrying her experiences quietly while focusing on her craft. But at 78, she finally decided to speak openly, not out of revenge, but as a way to release the weight of her past. Her revelations do not come with bitterness. Instead, they offer clarity, maturity, and perspective. In sharing her truth, Field demonstrates that honesty can be a form of healing. Her voice now stands as both a personal catharsis and a reminder that resilience, integrity, and growth endure beyond the chaos of fame. Just as Sally Field's voice inspires truth, keep our channel growing. Like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories today.